Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Monday, October 7th, 2019. Apologies ahead of time. You're gonna hear that. It's raining, so my windshield wipers are going. Also, yeah, it is 7:45, and I'm just leaving work. But I really wanted to make sure I do this recording. I actually did this recording this morning and then used an incorrect name, like, the whole way through. So we're just gonna redo it. Here we go. But I really want to make sure I do this because I gotta have a retraction to make. And I feel that I should. So, I did side event judging at the SCG Open this weekend. Oh my god. So, let's start with some mitigating factors. Again, it is 7:45 at night. I got to work at 8:20 this morning, and I'm just now leaving work. So, the new job's been pretty high impact, and my anxiety level is way elevated because, of all that. So, my anxiety level's already coasting at like a goddamn 11, and that was before even getting there. So that does kind of skew my perception of things. That being said, we'll start with the positive things. There was a guy named Pete something. Again, I did this entire recording this morning with the one guy's name wrong the whole way through it. And that was just his first name. You should be proud of me that I remembered a first name. Anyway, Pete was the guy from SCG that seemed to be like the main showrunner, like the main TO representative from SCG. He was really nice and seemed really interested in feedback, though that was definitely kind of awkward at the end when he's like, hey, before you go, since this was your first time, how was it? I'm like, I really don't want to tell you that it was awful, but it was kind of awful. So I'm like trying to kind of hedge and, it was high impact, and he seemed genuinely interested, but I don't know. I don't want to just complain. And I'm going to very much try to not do that here, but point out some potential issues. What else? My players were all great. There was one kid that... I say kid, meaning he was younger than me, so that's, anywhere from 13 to like 30. He looked like a younger guy. I don't know if maybe this was like one of his first tournaments or if he was just like really amped up. He was a little high energy, but he wasn't rude or disrespectful, just I think was trying to be helpful, like, end of round 1 of the first event I was running, went to turns, and as I'm sitting at a red light. I got a text from my husband. Since I'm just sitting at a red light, I decided to check it. Anyway, yeah, first event, first round, modern, goes to turns, and, of course everybody's standing around the last pair playing, and I had taken up the other couple match slips from people who went to turns to my scorekeeper and verified that we only had one outstanding. And so I went back to wait for this match slip, because of course I can't do anything without it. And they finished their game, and, as people do when they finish a game, and they start, like, packing their cards in, and the match slip's kind of an afterthought, and there is a giant group of people around them, and I'm trying to kind of make my way closer to them so I can get them to focus on the match slip quick. His kid looks at me and looks at them and goes, "That was game 3, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he looks at me and goes, "So it was 1-1-1." And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. And I get you want the next round to fire. I want to fire the next round. But I'm not entering, so I need the slip." Like at F&M, it's not uncommon for, as we watch the last match that's gone to turns finish up, them just to tell me their results and I just go enter it. And, we deal with the match slip later. So, just kind of stuff like that I'm like, I think you're trying to be helpful, and it's just really not. But, again, not rude or disrespectful, but, the vast majority of players I interacted with were, like, incredibly respectful. And my judge team for sides was pretty awesome. We had me and Cody, which I do have to say, like, huge shout out to the captain, Cody. He only applied to judge at this event because you'll find out why as I go on a little bit more. He's been not applying to judge opens, but he only applied to judge this one so that I would have somebody there with me. And I'm going to be 100% honest here. If it weren't for Cody being there, I probably would have done snapped by like noon and been like, "Alright, I misjudged my capacity here. I can't handle this. Sorry to screw y'all like this, but I'm out." Like, can't do it. Because let's stick with the positives and we'll get to all that. Then there was Dave and Leo, who were also L1s. I believe this was the first open for one of them as well. They clearly have better stress management and coping skills than I do. And then there was Gary, not Greg. That is the one. I got his name wrong every time I referenced him in my first attempt to record this. He was the L2 on our team, and he seemed very knowledgeable and was incredibly helpful. We did have a guy named Adam on our team, but he was mostly taking care of the rapid fire stuff all day, which is its own kind of beast. So we didn't really interact much. Then I had a judge lead, and I do not recall his name because, well, I actually didn't interact with him a whole lot. Now, this is where we're going to start sliding into negatives, but I do want to point out when I say that I didn't interact with him, and I will mention that I had a very difficult time finding him most times that I needed something. But I am in no way accusing him of being in dereliction of duty or anything like that. I don't know what all he's responsible for as the team lead for sides. There could be some administrative, junk that I'm just not aware of or whatever. All I know is how it directly affected me, of course. We all self-centered. But it directly affected me in the way that it was like 90% of the time that I was looking for somebody to, I was looking for leadership. I couldn't find him, so I ended up going and hassling Gary about it, who was very tolerant and helpful every single time. So, the day started out fine, because we had a judge to handle each side event going. But of course, as the day went on and more side events fired and we ran out of judges and or breaks needed covered, at one point I was babysitting for different events. I had a modern event, two-headed giant, sealed, and a legacy event, which, when they're like, "Hey, can you babysit this legacy event?" I'm like, "What? Please don't need anything." I don't play legacy. I don't even really pay much attention during legacy coverage. But luckily it seems legacy players seem to pretty well know what they're doing. And, end of the day, it's all just usually reading the cards and applying your knowledge of what this word or that word means or looking up some errata. Something had come up, I'm sure I would have found a way to deal with it, but luckily nothing came up on that front. But I mean, I had 4 different events with rounds turning over within like 5 minutes of each other. That I had to announce turns on one and then go announce turns on the other and like scramble around trying to duck these slips. And I had an SCG employee get snarky with me at one point where I actually interacted with my lead. He sent me over to the stage to collect, you know, the first round pairings and the like identity sheet and everything for an event that was about to fire in like 5 minutes. And, you know, while I'm trying to get my way up to the stage, but trying not to be pushy, and maybe that's my fault, maybe I should have been a bit pushier. Finally get up, talk to this guy who works for SCG, and say, you know, hey, I need the paperwork for this event. And there's a kid standing near me, and he says, oh yeah, I'm trying to get into that event. And this guy looks at him and goes, hey, we called this like 15 minutes ago, but man, like, it's not happening. It's already paired, it's ready to roll. And, you know, the kid got angry about it, and I won't say quite belligerent, but definitely made it known he was displeased. And this SCG employee kind of shoved my paperwork at me and snapped at me, told me that, you know, we really need to come up 10 minutes before the event starts to get this stuff. No, I actually don't know. It's my first time doing this, and I just did what my lead told me. So, you know, I'm kind of under the impression if you have a problem, you should probably be taking it up with him. But, like, with my anxiety already beyond my capacity to deal with it, you know, it was really disquieting, you know, really unsettling. I was really not pleased about it, and like, I was actually really making an effort to be pissed off about it, because otherwise it was just gonna kind of crumble apart and probably cry, and dude, it's really embarrassing. So I just got mad, but I couldn't really hold on to that because that requires a lot of energy, and I just didn't have any at that point. I mean, seriously, this, like, shit was no joke. So yeah, it was a high physical impact. I mean, I got my 1 hour break, and that was it. Pretty much, other than that, I was, you know, standing on the concrete tournament floor, you know, walking around doing things. And I'm just not really built for that anymore. It was an incredibly high, like, emotional toll. Like, the shit was rough. And while every one of my players was nice to me, and my judge team were all very nice, there were others there in an official capacity that weren't, and it was upsetting. You know, I can't really make that sound any better. Then on top of everything, I had misread, you know, the, like, event write-up, and I was under the impression, like, I had signed on for be there by 9, dismiss at 7:30. That's not the case. And if you watched the SCG Open coverage from Philly this past weekend, you'll know day one wasn't wrapped up anywhere near 7:30. So, like, I don't know, we made it to like 5 o'clock, and I mentioned to Cody that I was glad that it was almost over, and he was like, I hate to burst your bubble, but what? I was like, yeah, we're only here till 7:30, right? And he's like, ooh, don't know where you got that. Well, when I, you know, applied to do this and everything, like, I told husband that was the expectation. You know, I left the guy up here in Harrisburg on his own with our 3 goddamn kids, one of which is under 1 year old. So, you know, then I went, had to track down my judge lead and explain the situation to him. He didn't seem too broken up about me needing to go. And, I mean, to be fair, I was having a rough time keeping up. Yeah, no question. No real excuse for it. I think it was more that I had to take Cody with me because I brought him down and I was his ride back. It was definitely made pretty clear to me without outright being said that this unexpected complication was incredibly unwanted. However, when we went to talk to Pete, the head showrunner of the tournament for SCG, he was really nice about it. He was very accommodating. He only asked that I make sure that I stop back and talk to him before I head out so he could give me my check and my playmat and have a quick chat with me before I went. I mean, I was definitely glad to be out of there, but I definitely felt awful that I screwed up on this. And if I'm being fair, side events were kind of wrapping up by that point. You know, we were in the downturn of the day, but I do understand, like, how do you decide then who gets to go and who has to stay and keep things afloat until the end, right? So I get it, but yeah, the whole experience was just kind of awful. And then, like, at first things were fun, and then everything was on fire, constantly. And due to the high anxiety state, I couldn't even really get a reprieve when I was on my break, because it's knowing that it's still down there waiting for me to come back. Then, especially when you take into account, if you deduct my travel expenses from that check I was given by that nice man who works for SCG, I actually make more taking the lowest paid value option. Because I have a choice of a couple different ways to be compensated when I do the floor judging for the IQs. And they're... Keep in mind, I'm not the head judge. I'm a floor judge on that. But what Boss compensates me for those ends up coming out to be more. Like, I net a higher profit for less hours and like 1,000 times less stress running or floor judging at an IQ at my LGS than I did for this mess. And here comes the retraction. A while ago, I had said about, you know, oh, screw you, Channel Fireball, with your claims that you have to raise the price of admission and stop giving out playmats so that you can pay the judges at your events because clearly SCG's doing just fine. Well, having talked to a few different people who have worked both types of events, turns out when you look at street value of the product plus actual cash, well, check given to you for a day of judging at a Magic Fest, it's about 4 times what you get paid for a day at SCG. And I mean, I know judging's not all about the pay. I'm not expecting them to pay me the same salary I make as, you know, a software engineer. Good God. Like, yeah, I just worked an 11-hour day. getting stuck on something, stressing about it. But, I mean, I'll also get to leave early on Friday now to clear out the extra time. And even without time and a half, those 11 hours are worth way more from my 9 to 5 than the hours from SCG were worth. So, I mean, I'm not expecting that they meet that or anything. We're not going to compare it to my real life job. But at the same time, once you deduct travel expenses, the fact that, like, I had to cover my own lunch, which is fine, except when I floor judge the IQs at the shop, boss covers lunch for the judge staff. But when you deduct all these expenses from the amount I was paid, and then aggregate that amount, if I would have stayed until 10 or 11, whenever they wrapped up and allowed everybody to go, I mean, you're looking at like half of minimum wage there. And that's pretty insane. I don't think I'll be signing up to judge another open. And it's not just low compensation. It was incredibly high impact and like wrecked the shit out of me. I do have to give credit. Like, I do have to say something for David, the one member of my judge team. Like, after I got snarked at by the SCG employee, and I'm like really trying to be mad, but just so I don't collapse into a disheveled mess, like, I hit the anxiety level of, cool, we're gonna vomit now, awesome. And I'm desperately trying to hold down the meager contents of my stomach at that point. And so I'd like press my hand against my stomach because, you know, I don't know, if you've ever been pregnant, that's what you do when you feel like you're about to throw up, kind of as a last ditch effort to not. And David happened to spot me, and like, he was incredibly concerned. You know, he asked if I was doing okay because I looked really not okay. I said, yeah, I'm fine. And he was like, are you sure? Because you really don't seem like, are you hydrating? Do you need water? Do you, like, what can I do to make you more okay? Because you really seem not okay. Which I don't recall ever meeting David before. Now, again, I'm not great with names. So I may have interacted with him in passing previously, but it's not like he's somebody that I'm, you know, close. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Cody had noticed and been like, yeah, we need to do something about this. But somebody that, you know, I've just kind of met that day and been working with that day, like, to express so much concern was incredibly nice of him. And it was very comforting to the point that it really helped me make it through the rest of the day. And Leo was very nice, very helpful every time I needed an assist on a call. Oh, the other thing, they want you to fill out this online form, this online, like, Google Docs form for every judge interaction. I only filled it out twice. Once for the very first one of the day. I had a no-show game one, you know, for round one of our first event. And I guess the person had dropped, but it was after pairings. So I filled out the form when we took care of that. And the other one was a call I had answered that I thought one of the players may give feedback on, and I wanted them to have a record. And I'll say, while I was trying to fill out, like, the minimal information on this form, I took, like, 4 more judge calls before I was done with it. It is an unreasonable expectation when you have somebody watching so many events and taking calls from so many events at the same time, plus trying to turn over the rounds, have to go get the paperwork yourself, cut the match slips yourself, you know, just get everything done, like, on your own. Like, the scorekeepers print for you, and that's great, and they enter for you, and that's awesome. But after that point, once they hand off the paperwork, it's on you to get the, you know, next round end time updated, to get the round fired, to get the pairings up, to get the match slips cut and handed out. Yeah, there's no goddamn way you have time to fill out this feedback form for every goddamn interaction. That was a particular sticking point. So, I don't know, it may say something awful about me as a judge that, no, I gave up on trying to keep up with that pretty damn quick. Yeah, no, this whole thing was just absolutely insane. I can't say that it was poorly run with the resources we had to run it. I don't think we had enough judges to, cover this the way they seem to want it covered. And it's not really the fault of SCG. You can't force a judge to judge. But I believe that at this point, one of the reasons they seem to be hurting more and more for judges at events is the compensation just isn't worth the strain. Because, it is a strain. I would not call anything past maybe the first 2-3 hours I was there fun. At that point, it was just kind of all terrifying until it stopped being terrifying, and then I just wanted it to be over. Now, Cody and I were talking on the drive back, and he expressed that he thinks I should, apply to judge at a Magic Fest and, get both experiences. And I don't know, it's going to be a while before I'm willing to try to go out for anything like this again. But if I do, I'll, do another episode on that. He said that, it's still busy, but you still get more judges applying, I guess. So they staff more. So again, I'm not saying it's SCG's fault from the point that, they're staffing minimal judges. I think they're not getting a lot of applicants. It was an incredibly rough experience. I don't think I'm going to pursue my L2 anymore. I was pretty excited to do that, but not if it means I have to keep doing this. I don't think I can take it again. So, that's where that's at. I'm not trying to complain or say that I'm trying to think of how I want to word all this. Oh man, I gotta stop at the top of the video. I know this may sound like I, just kind of complained for 28 minutes. But, yeah, I'm all about having the pro players paid, or, making it worth pursuing that dream. But Judge Academy wants $100 a year from me. And as far as I've seen, they're not doing anything to improve this kind of situation. And, I do have a love of the game and everything, and I want to see these events to be able to continue to go on, but I'm just not willing to give myself up as a sacrificial lamb to, for the betterment of the game. It's just not something I can do. And part of it is I do have a full-time job, well, full-time plus, if you count the hours that I'm not really compensated for, but spend studying and learning and improving. And I also, have a family. There are a lot of demands on my time, and the being in abject hell for very little in return just isn't something I'm willing to give any of those hours to at this point. I'm going to pause y'all real quick. But yeah, so... Oh, I do want to say, like, as far as the SCG employee that got snarky with me, it seems like those individuals that were working like the front line there on the stage were getting pretty battered between players and judges and everything they were trying to keep up with too. As much as it, you know, kind of knocked me down a bit, I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was personal. But it definitely added to the hellscape. Yeah, I mean, I have waited tables. I've been a barista. I have worked fast food. I have worked retail. I have worked on Black Friday. In a retail store. And none of it compared to just how demoralizing and terrifying this experience was. And it is important to keep in mind that, like, I do have an anxiety problem and it happened to be pretty bad this weekend due to external factors, but come on, man, go. Tires are gonna slide, you're gonna be pissed, I'm gonna be pissed. But yeah, if I have to do that to maintain an L2, that's not happening. So, I guess I will be content to continue to be a store judge and go back to the reason that I got my cert in the first place, you know, to help out at the shop. And it's also important to observe, I guess, that boss takes really good care of us at the shop. He really puts a value on having judges. Why were you way in the other lane? Are we all gonna die? I don't know. You know, it's like before I got my cert, when it came to pre-releases, Judge usually ran like the Friday midnight and the Sunday events, and just whoever was working the store ran the Saturday events. Since I got my cert, usually when we come up on pre-release weekend, I ask boss what he wants me to cover, and he'll list off the events that Judge isn't covering, and his stance is still like, if you can, that's great, because I definitely prefer to have a real judge here to handle this and take care of this stuff. But if you can't, you know, I understand. And, I mean, he does compensate us pretty well for, you know, the IQs and everything. So maybe that also kind of colors my opinion of all of this. When I'm like, comparing to the output versus, well, and the just lack of strain from doing these events at the LGS. And then this, like, I really thought I was going to break a couple times. It was really just the the team I was working with was really great and very supportive. And I think, though, even the other people there being great and supportive, I still maintain if Cody hadn't been there with me, I probably would have broke. He's a good pal. But I'll tell you, man, I'm still sore. Like, everything from my ankles to my ribs hurts. And, I mean, I got joint issues. So, it's not wholly surprising. But, yeah, it was a lot of physical wear and exponentially more emotional wear doing this. I'm actually kind of concerned about my ability to face my local players, this Friday. So, that's where it's at. There were definitely bright spots. There were, like I said, players were all just great. Thank you, Judge. And, very respectful. So by and large, like, the human interaction component was pretty good, aside from a couple hiccups. But it's so much. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not good enough at multitasking. But oh yeah, it was kind of traumatizing. But anyway, I'm almost home. I threw you on pause because I had to grab dinner because, of course, I'm home so late. I don't have time to cook dinner. Everybody needs to eat so we can get the kids to bed, so I can get to bed. Girly McBabyface didn't sleep, like, at all last night, so my husband and I split shifts on it, but it just means that we're both exhausted because we each got less than 4 hours of sleep. Yay! But I just want to make sure that I get this out here, mostly for the retraction. If the reasoning for charging more and giving less at GPs is actually so that they can support their judge staff, yeah, I endorse it. And if you like competitive paper magic, you probably should too, because eventually, people aren't going to do this. Like, you got some diehards. Props to anybody who makes a profession out of this noise. But, eventually you'll just run out of judges that are willing to endure it. But, anyway, that's what I got. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening. And hopefully I'll get to talk to y'all later this week about, something nicer like, Field of the Dead.